Am I audible and visible clearly, Aditi?
Yes, you are.
Great. Good to go. We shall begin in 1 minute from now. Welcome back, everyone. I'm P. Shravan Kumar, the founder of SK Associates and Group, and your host for today's session of Conference 1.9 on role of alliances and growth of startups.
And I'm Aditi Jain, the Chief Strategic Alliance Advisor of SK Associates and Group, and I'm Shravan's co-host for Conference 1.9 on role of alliances and growth of startups. We would like to request all the speakers and attendees to switch on your webcams and stay on video throughout the conference. Now, we would like to quickly introduce our guest for the second session of Conference 1.9.
Firstly, we would like to introduce Mr. Jonathan Cummings, who is originally from Kingston, Jamaica, and moved to New York City at the age of 16. Jonathan here holds a Bachelor of Arts at Ithaca College and his Master's at Cornell University. Currently, Jonathan serves as a member of the Sterling Committee for the Alliance of NGOs and CSOs for South Corporation, and advisor for Global Policy Insights, and as an Alliance Manager for Deloitte's Government and Public Services Practices.
Our next guest on the panel is Ms. Urvisha, who is a passionate entrepreneur, leading her venture Pitch Books since 2014 to accomplish dreams of many startups across various industries and sectors. Having starting her professional career with JP Morgan Chase Investment Bank in 2007, where she was actively involved in identifying deal opportunities for M&As, she has gone through an exciting journey from working at a corporate to starting her own venture. With more than 10 years of experience in the financial sector, she has successfully helped companies raise more than 10 million. She has worked with global startups and established firms across sectors to help them create stunning professional pitch decks, presentations, financial models, business plans, and has also supported many global boutique investment banks and venture capitals for collaterals. She is currently the national president of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Startup Council and is also a part of the SME Climate Hub, which is United Nations Race to Zero campaign. She has been awarded Mumbai's Women Leader by World Women Leadership Congress and Awards in July 2022, Women Influencer and Entrepreneur Year Award 2021 by UBS in May 2021, and her I Am Pitch books have been honored with the Excellence in Finance Companies Award at FI Next Conference Dubai 2020. She has also been recognized to give successful talk shows at Global India Business Forum and Rice World Summit and is known to have been on many judging panels for educational events like Hult Prize.
Our next guest for today is Mr. Sirojit Gomez, who is a company secretary, having gained a successful track record for more than 11 years in finance, accounts, secretarial works, taxation, and operations management within retail, pharmaceutical, and automobile and engineering industry with a strong analytical capability. He has a solid education in finance and accounting with a degree of Master of Commerce and PGDM in Export Import Management, and has also completed the professional program course from the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. In addition to his accounting and management abilities, he possesses solid leadership with a record of leading, motivating, and inspiring large and diverse teams to achieve the timely completion of strategic projects. Mr. Bhumich also possesses excellent technical skills and is proficient in essential computer hardware software including Oracle, HINAI, Tally, ERP9, MS Office, Outlook, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. Being an effective communicator, he also possesses strong interpersonal skills and established rapport with all levels of staff and management. At present, he is working as the CFO and company secretary in Aditya Toll Bridge Company Limited or ATBCL Limited.
Our next guest on the panel is CA Gaurav Kanudwal, who is a partner at Kanudwala and Associates, a team of skilled technocrats and solution providers that specializes in helping startups with financial modeling, business revenue modeling, and compliance requirements. With years of experience in the industry, Gaurav has a proven track record of successfully preparing startups for fundraising and connecting them with investors to raise funds. He is a trusted advisor to many startups, providing comprehensive and personalized support to help them achieve their goals and reach their full potential. Gaurav is a dedicated professional who is committed to helping his clients navigate the complex world of startup financing, and he takes pride in his ability to deliver exceptional results.
We also have Mr. Vipul Kumar Singh, who is a practicing company secretary and a postgraduate in commerce and associate member of ICSI. Having wide experience of more than 18 years in different sectors or industries, he has successfully handled legal and secretarial, FEMA and taxation assignments of private limited, public limited, and public listed companies, and has been active in providing professional consultancy to several startups and big corporate groups. Apart from the above, he's having moderate experience into teaching in private coachings and CS, law and MBA grads since 2007 on various topics of management, finance, tax, accounts, and law. He has successfully delivered lecture in various programs or seminars of ICSI.
Our next guest on the panel is Shefali Sangal, founder of Young Minds, a HR consulting firm, and Women with Wings, a community of women collaborators, brings with her 22 years of industry experience. Ms. Shefali is also the state president, UP HR Council with Women India, Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She runs a charitable trust, Bhavishya, which takes initiatives for women and child, and she is also a certified POSH consultant. Ms. Shefali is president of Young Entrepreneur Network and a mentor to Lady Shri Ram College of Entrepreneurship and Industrial Advisory Committee with Modi's University. She is a multi-award winner and on a mission to spread message of celebrate life.
We would like to request all the guest speakers and attendees to kindly switch on your respective webcams throughout the conference. We would also like to inform all of you that the HR team is conducting polls in the chat box throughout the session. You actively participate in the same by giving your opinions in the polls. Further moving on, we would like to invite Mr. Jonathan Cummins, Alliance Manager at Deloitte US, to share his insights.
Hi, good morning from New York City. So thank you for having me. And I created a little presentation, and let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen? Yes?
No, not as of
No?
now.
All right, give me 1 second. It's interesting. Okay, let me try one more time. Oh, okay. Well, I had this nice little presentation developed, but for some reason my screen doesn't want to share, but it's all right. So
You can continue with the speech.
I'll continue. I'll just continue. So thank you everyone for having me. Thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, my name is Jonathan Cummins, and I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica, and right now I currently reside in New York City. A little bit about me, which we went into a little bit of introduction, but as I mentioned, I'm originally from Jamaica, moved to New York City at the age of 16, and currently I work for Deloitte. I'm a Deloitte practitioner. I graduated from Ithaca College, my Bachelor's of Arts in Culture and Communication Studies, and my Master's from Cornell University in Public Administration. Has been, yes, within the private sector, working with Deloitte and learning more about philanthropy, investment, investor relations, things like that. But my background also has been within the NGO and multilateral space. So, operating within the United Nations system, I've been a speaker at the United Nations several occasions. I spoke at the General Assembly. I've even hosted events at the UN, and it's something. It was an experience that's definitely molded me for the better. I like to say for the better. So thank you for this opportunity to present to you all, and let me go on with the presentation on the role of alliances in the growth of startups. So, firstly, we're talking about startups within the world of startups. We all know that the startup industry is a very volatile one. Nine out of 10 startups don't make it within, just within the first year. Even I mean, overall, 9 out of 10 startups don't make it. Within the first year, 20% of startups fail. Within the first 3 to 4 years, several startups lose funding. The top 5 reasons why startups fail is oftentimes because there's no market, meaning that the product or service that they have does not fall within the interests of other consumers or potential companies and so on and so forth. Oftentimes, they run out of money. As you know, money is a very important thing when it comes to startup. How are you going to fund your operations, create your product services? How are you going to attract investment? Sometimes you need money to make money, right? So running out of money is a big thing which causes startups to fail. I mentioned having an operational base and having the right team. Not having the right team also falls into the reason why startups often fail, and competition and cost issues. Another interesting statistic is that the top 5 countries with the most startups are, in order, the United States, India, UK, Canada, and Indonesia. India falls at number 2 with the most startups. The United States has over 71,000 startups, and this is data from 2022. India comes in second with over 13,000, which is very impressive. And the UK falls to third place with 6.2 thousand startups. So now I know a lot of you are from India, and this is very interesting to me as well. India is ranked second place with the most startups in the world. And I firmly believe that the India startup economy is going to skyrocket as a startup ecosystem and more technology becomes readily available. And, through conferences like this, I firmly believe that the India startup ecosystem will continue to grow. Will it catch up to the United States? Who knows? The United States hosts more than 60% of, well, almost 60% of the world's global startups. So let's see. 7.1% of startups in the world are in the fintech industry. 6.8 are in life sciences and healthcare. 5% are in artificial intelligence. 4.7 in gaming. Ad tech is 3.3, and educational technology is 2.8. 60% of entrepreneurs agree that AI is the most promising and innovative technology, which creates me to believe that moving forward, you're going to see a lot of startups, a lot of companies in the startup space will have a lot to do with artificial intelligence. Now, that's enough statistics for today. I'll get a little bit more into the startup ecosystem. To talk a little bit about the startup ecosystem, I believe this is very, very important. The startup ecosystem is it's a network of resources, people, investors, institutions, and companies that work together to create an environment where startups can thrive. This can be a physical area or an online area. The biggest startup ecosystem, or rather the most famous startup ecosystem in the world, is Silicon Valley. That is where a lot of startups in the world emerge from, Silicon Valley. Next is London, New York, are tied for second place, Hong Kong, and so on. Interestingly enough, India is ranked second place with the amount of startups, but India doesn't have a recognized startup ecosystem, which I found fascinating. Maybe things will change. Maybe conversations like this will help to create one. I hear, I believe it's Bangalore. Is that the tech hub? So, maybe conversations like this will generate some interest where maybe the government or private sector within India might have a dedicated area that focuses on pushing startups and helping startups thrive. But as I mentioned, India is second in the world with the amount of startups. So having a startup ecosystem which will help catapult the number of startups and give startup support will be very, very beneficial to the country. Now, so I know I'm short on time. So going on to the role of alliances in startups. Strategic alliances allow startups to embark on opportunities that they may not have otherwise pursued. This can include earning new clients, identifying new partners, finding different sources of revenue, which is very important, engage in products, engage in different markets, and sell different products. Each of these avenues have the potential to increase the startup's revenue and profitability. But that alone is very important. With alliances, alliances can help a company or a startup grow, go into new markets, identify new products, and more importantly than that, I mean, you know, help you find access to revenue. Since we're talking about business, the bottom line is revenue is important. You know, how are you going to generate revenue? How are you going to make revenue? And some examples of famous alliances, and these are established companies now. Talking about some established companies. Some of them were startups at one point, but these are established companies. There's a famous one of Vodafone India and ICICI Bank. Their strategic alliance on launching M-Pesa, a mobile money transfer and payment service. That was a strategic alliance. Those two companies coming together, seeing where their strengths are and how they can complement each other, and launch a strategic alliance. That's a very, very famous one. Another example of a strategic alliance, and this is very US centric. Uh, I'm not sure if it's in India, but this is very US centric. Barnes and Noble and Starbucks, they have an alliance where every time someone goes into a Barnes and Noble bookstore, there's a Starbucks coffee station there. And that is a strategic alliance. Something like that is a strategic alliance. It may not seem, on a grander scale, it may not seem as flashy as, Fundolfo and the collaboration with the bank, but that is a strategic alliance. Another one, which, I don't know how many of you all are football fans, like the FIFA, but FIFA's collaboration with EA Sports in creating FIFA video games. That's an alliance. That's a strategic alliance. And these are all very interesting examples. And I guess finally, now closing this out, how can startups create strategic alliances? First and foremost, never underestimate the power of partnerships and relationships. Partnerships and relationships are key in business. As a startup, as a new company, identifying investors, developing relationships with other companies or other people who can give you access to markets or identify new services or so on and so forth, that cannot be underestimated. That is very important. Next, I would say look at how your company's product or service serves as an asset to another company. Now, when entering a strategic alliance or looking for an alliance, I know oftentimes when you're looking to work with a company or an individual, the idea is like, okay, how can this person benefit me? Sure, that's important. But at the same time, you need to figure out what resources and connections that your company has that can bring, what you can bring to the table for them. Why should they even listen to you? Why should they even take the meeting? Right? Why should they work with you? Coming out of the mindset where it's only me and my company and thinking of a win-win scenario is the best way to move forward and build an alliance. Thinking from the standpoint of the company or individual, as I mentioned, that you're approaching, how can your company benefit them? That is very, very important. That is critical. And finally, never underestimate the importance of having a person to manage partnerships or alliances. That is something that a lot of large companies do. And I see a lot of large companies doing it. Deloitte, for example, does it. A lot of other companies, Google, Apple, they have alliance and partnership managers. But why isn't this being incorporated into smaller companies and startups? And I think oftentimes from the get go, if you have an individual focused on building a partnership or alliance or looking for business development opportunities exclusively. And yes, you have to see that's oftentimes that's the job of the CEO, other executives. But if you have someone focusing on that, I think that can ease the burden on a lot of startups. And from there, you can find access to new sources of funding, revenue partnerships, look at other market entry, and so on and so forth. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I'm here for any questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask the attendees to put forward their questions if anyone have any questions. Kindly unmute themselves and ask.
So,
Anyone have any
Nathan, I had a
questions?
question here, if you don't
Yeah.
mind it. There are two kinds of alliances. Like alliances are basically like done with objectives. So there are two kinds of objectives. Firstly, alliances happen for an increase in revenue, and secondly, they happen for a community impact project or for social impact. Which one do you think is more commendable?
Well, well, my UN background hat tells me I should say community and social impact. My impulse is so. The thing is, I firmly believe the community and social impact one, obviously is more commendable. But why not tie in community and social impact with developing revenue? That's a new stream that's being developed. That's it's been being talked about for many many years. I think the corporate social responsibility movement. I think that started. It became popular in 2017, around that time, right? Now it's transformed into ESG, environmental and social governance, and now you're seeing companies hire ESG managers, ESG consultants, people to work on social impact almost exclusively. Now, the way I look at it, and this might be a little idealistic, a business at the end of the day, you need to care about your bottom line. You can't do community and social impact relationships and do all this beneficial stuff if you're not making any money. The business is going to collapse. You don't want to be the 40% of startups that lose money. You don't want to do that. What I do believe, however, is that if you can tie in the community and social ESG movement impact into generating revenue, that's a win-win for everyone. You generate money, you look good, you form a new alliance, and everyone loves you. That's how I look at it.
That was a great response. Okay. Now I would like to invite all the attendees to put forth their questions, if any. Surbi, Namrata, Devya, Tejal, Abhinav. No questions? Yeah. No?
All right.
Fine.
Cool.
No issues.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'll be here. I'll be here for the presentation, so I'll be listening in. And I'm sorry my screen wasn't able to share. I
No,
developed
it's
a nice.
totally fine.
I
No
would love to
issues.
share as well.
Aditi, if you can just take over.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we would like to thank Mr. Cummings for his beautiful and marvelous speech, and I request him to share his mail in the comment box for any queries our attendees might have. Moving ahead, we would like to invite Ms. Urvisha, founder and CEO of Pitch Books, to commence her speech.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you, SK Associates and Group, for inviting me here for today's speaker session. I'm sure everybody is having a great, insightful session since yesterday. So thank you for that. And it's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Jonathan, I think you've put in some very good statistics here today for us to set the stage. So thank you for that wonderful speech. And yes, it's. I would, since we have a very short span of time, I would quickly like to, share my screen and get into the topic right away. Of course, I know that this topic is so exhaustive and we can go on and all, but I'll keep it very crisp and to the point where I will be able to share some insights in terms of what is the role of alliances in startups, because we worked with a lot of startups since 2014. I will tell you all that so many companies who come to us, especially when they want to raise funds, etc., they tell us that this is the kind of partnership and the alliances that we are doing. But because this is more like a global platform, I'll see to it that I talk about more case studies and examples, just like Mr. Jonathan mentioned about Starbucks and Barnes and Noble. We'll have some kind of similar examples which will probably be more relatable to all of you all here. So just allow me to share my screen. I think. Is my screen visible? Aditi?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So, starting off with the role of alliances, let's see what we will cover today for people who would want to know some basics of it as well. Advantages and importance of alliances in growth of startups. What are the challenges that startups are generally facing when they are going in for the partnerships? We'll have some examples and some case studies, and then Q&A. So, as we all know, we generally tend to, sort of understand things and, experiences from industry veterans themselves. I would like to start by quoting Mr. Richard Branson, who himself has, obviously years of experience in his entrepreneurial journey. And he very rightly says, seek out strategic alliances. They are essential to growth and provide resistance to bigger competition. So, as somebody in the participants mentioned, there are certain two types of alliances. I will quickly just talk about the actual two types of alliances that are there for startups. One is the equity strategic alliance, and the second is the non-equity strategic alliance. As the name rightly says, equity strategic alliance is basically where two or more firms own different percentages of the company that they have formed by combining some of their resources and capabilities to create a competitive advantage. So obviously, here what we have to take care of is that startups don't dilute much of their stake, the equity stake that is being in question out here. So companies should try and reserve as much as possible. At the same time, make sure that the strategic partner really helps them in terms of their revenues. And the second is the non-equity, where companies generally develop a contractual relationship to share certain resources and capabilities. And again, there is no equity involved here, so it's mainly for either sharing of user base, softwares, channels of distribution, or somebody said maybe social impact related. So these are the two basic alliances that we have for startups. And of course, then we have, so just to talk about the benefits of each, for equity, it's better to, go in for that when it's difficult to find an investment partner, or you want to focus more on growing your venture rather than, raising funds. So it's good to have like-minded partners who will be innovative and who will come up with creative ideas for that. One of the examples that I would like to talk about here is that, Panasonic apparently invested about $30 million with, Tesla with the aim of, accelerating battery technology for the EV vehicles. And both of them had great results and fantastic partnership. Coming to non-equity alliance, again, it is a less, it's more informal, alliance and partnership, but again, just as powerful. It's mainly where, to give an example, it's like Starbucks had with, either Barnes and Nobles or Kroger, where Starbucks pays for the rental of the space, but at the same time gets high traffic location for a store. And at the same time, Kroger gets rent from Starbucks, but also gets, Starbucks to their customers. gets to offer basically Starbucks to their customers. So these are the basic alliances that startups go in for. Moving to global strategic alliance, of course, I'm sure everybody is aware that any startups or even any companies who want to go cross national boundaries to expand geographically, it's very important for them to, engage with a partner out there who will be able to exponentially help them grow. So parties enjoy more flexibility in these kind of situations, and of course it's a great win-win situation for both the companies. So just like to highlight, what are the benefits here and why alliances is really important for startups. One is, I think Jonathan mentioned some of the points, but I'll quickly reiterate some of them. One is access to new markets and customers, which I just spoke about. Second is increased efficiency and effectiveness. So essentially what happens is that because businesses can share knowledge, expertise, they can help startups to save time and money and improve overall operations. Third is reduced risk. So when a startup partners with or allies with another business, the risks associated with the businesses are shared. So this can help help protect the startup from financial losses in case the business fails. So a very important point out there. Again, another important point is improved competitive positioning. So, because partnerships and alliances can give startups access to new technology, products, services, this can help them stay ahead of competition and to be, better meet the needs of their customers. Next is greater flexibility. So, for example, let's say a startup is developing a new mobile app. Now, they might partner with a company that specializes in, developing mobile apps. This way, the startup can actually focus on the design and developments of the app, while their partner handles the marketing and distribution. So you will see how everything is a win-win situation here. And lastly, brand awareness. Of course, taking, brand leverage for companies which are already in existence would be a very good point for startups, because it takes time to build credibility in the market and trust. So if a company already has that, the startup can quickly scale. Moving on, these are some of the challenges which we see that startups are facing in terms of, alliances, which is usually with technology-based companies, where they are unable to barter their technological resources, with potential partners, and they cannot really engage in collaborative agreements. So that is one issue. Second is limited social capital. A lot of ventures are likely to restrain attraction of valuable partners due to certain limitations in the the social capital that they have. And lastly, even the management function, when you see the top executives, they are also quite stressed out in terms of managing day-to-day operations, so thus lacking the time to actually go and network and build those collaborative relationships. But of course, I would like to, since Jonathan had mentioned about India being ranking, second most in the startup ecosystem, I would like to inform that I've seen the ecosystem building out since the past, so many years, and especially the government has played a very important role, because they launched the Startup India portal, where they are supporting so many startups, and through collaborations with a lot of corporates like Dell, etc., they are coming on the platform to sort of push these startups and really engage in great activities. So the government has really taken a crucial role in that. Lastly, I'll just talk about a few examples which have really done well and hugely benefited not only for themselves but even for the customers too. So one was the Uber and Spotify partnership back in 2014, when they announced a new partnership that would allow actually riders to control the music streaming on their phones while they ride. So this partnership was a huge win, because it gave Uber riders a new way to interact with the app, and Spotify got more exposure to new users. So the partnership was successful from the beginning, and I think it's still going on, I think, strong today. Second, I would like to talk about Airbnb and couch surfing. So, as everybody is aware, Airbnb, which is the online marketplace for home sharing, partnered with couch surfing, which is again a popular social networking site for travelers. And this allowed Airbnb, in fact, to users to find couch surfing members who are willing to host them in their homes. So, again, a good sharing of customer database. And lastly, Etsy and Pinterest. Etsy, which is the online marketplace for handmade and vintage goods, they partnered with Pinterest, for networking. Of course, it's a social networking site, so for visual content. And the partnership allowed Etsy users to share their products and drive traffic back. So while Jonathan spoke about some companies, established companies doing great in terms of partnership, I just elaborated on the startups which did great by just collaborating. So since we are less on time, I will quickly move to conclusion, because I know there are a lot of case studies, but I would not want to take away more time. Just to conclude, while partnerships can provide great access to new products, technologies, identify new customers, block a competitor, through the first moving advantage, you can see that it is absolutely essential today for any startups to get into collaboration. So just to my last few words would be, while access to external resources represents the strategic rationale for alliance making, the possession of valuable resources in terms of intellectual, social, and reputational capital are the primary enablers of alliance and alliance implementation. So thank you so much, and I hope it was a good brief session, and I could capture some of the things, but open to taking questions.
Firstly, Urvisha, the speech was excellent and your presentation too. Further moving on, I would like to ask you some questions. Partnerships and collaborations are becoming quite famous, obviously, amongst entrepreneurs. But what would be your advice into industry-specific partnerships? Because there are all student entrepreneurs out here, the same would be useful.
Okay, so would you want me to elaborate on partnering, let's say, an industry with like a well-established corporate with a startup, or would you want me to elaborate on the industries and big players themselves collaborating?
I would like you to elaborate on the aspect of collaborations between startups which actually want to provide service into some other industry, but they collaborate with other firms instead of expanding themselves in that line.
So there is a very thin line out here, if I say, because if the vision is very clear of the startups, they know what is supposed to be leveraged from different industries and corporates. What the alliance and collaboration can help out here is, let's say there is a startup in maybe a drone sector, just for example, and you have a much more established player, let's say Reliance, which is also into drones and specific softwares. Now if the startup has some kind of partnership where they want to focus only on getting some part of it from the established entity, then through their own innovative products and USPs, the startups themselves can grow. So they need to find that balance between what is supposed to be taken from the industries in terms of partnership, whether it is in terms of technology, whether it is in terms of taking customer base or expansion, distribution channels, etc. So I think a strategic, I would say a strategic plan would be very important for any startups to see how the collaboration can eventually help them grow. And definitely you will see, I'm not sure if you're aware, but companies like Dell, Okay, Dell is investing in so many startups. It is literally getting all these startups on board, taking their innovative ideas, pushing them to grow and scale. So these are some of the industries which are helping startups grow.
That's a great case, especially. Now, moving on, I would like to invite all the attendees to put forth their questions to Urvisha, if any. Yeah, we do have a question here, Urvisha. I would like to read it out to you, or can you read it?
Just is it in the chat?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Okay, by Namrata. If we try to collaborate with established company, how to prevent from takeover as a newer startup is exposed. Sorry. Okay. Very good question, Namrata. So it is. Well, eventually, what startups want to do, I'll be honest, is that they want to put their innovative ideas, grow it to a particular level, scale it to a certain stage as well. And if they are able to get good valuations or good price for being taken over, or go for an IPO, then they are in fact very open to that. Reason being, startups have a certain limitation to in terms of maybe resources, in terms of either funding, or in terms of skill sets, or any of those things, or infrastructure wise, space, etc. So startups are more than happy to collaborate with established companies, if at all they are giving this sort of opportunity to be taken over, if they are getting good money. But it is also not good for the economy if that happens. But so far, I have not seen big players really eating up the small players. There can be collaborations and strategic opportunities, and I think the government and the policies are such right now that they are safeguarding the interests of startups. So there are certain rules that the government has put in where these sort of situations can be avoided.
Great question. Next, if anyone has any more questions, please you may unmute yourself and simply ask. So, be Abhinav, Nisha. No question in this session? Atul, Gurleen, Ashmi, Jagruti. Okay. One last question from my side, Urvisha. Yeah, Abhinav, you has a question.
Very good evening, ma'am. This side Abhinav here. Ma'am, I wish to know, like, how much, like, IPOs of the big companies are helpful to generate revenue for any kind of startup, directly or indirectly.
So before I answer that question, are you all aware that now there are IPOs even for startups? Basically, startups can list themselves on the Bombay Stock Exchange, specifically for startups that I'm talking about. So they don't need to wait till a level where they can grow, scale, and then do the IPO. In fact, I had visited the BSE convention recently, and the BSE chairman himself said, that we want more startups to come for directly for their IPO, so that we are in a position to help them also, and the public funding and all that can help them grow. So I think now it's more like the big players who are already there on the stock markets and who are already there in terms of the IPO, they are playing their own game, and the startups are sort of playing their own game with helping the entire ecosystem. So I think it's more siloed in those aspects. Is that something that is answerable. Did I answer your question correctly? If I understood well?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last
Great.
word I didn't understood. Sorry for that.
So siloed meaning separately they are doing their own things, which means the companies which are established, they have their own things to take care when they are on the Bombay Stock Exchange, right? So for example, they have certain rules, processes, formalities and everything that they need to do for growing their own company. Now the startups, because they are lacking in terms of resources and all, that's the reason they are going in for the IPO, so that they can get the public funding as well, and they are doing their own set of things to play a part in the wealth creation of the economy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any more questions out here? Nisha? No? Okay. Any other questions? You may simply unmute yourself and address it to Urvisha out here. None of this. No issues. Yeah. Aditi, if you can carry forward, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for this lovely session. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Ms. Urvisha. Anyone would like to ask any questions to Mr. Jonathan? You can simply unmute yourself and ask, as we still have time.
Yeah. Any questions special to Mr. Cummins?
Yeah, I actually have one question, Jonathan, since you are there and you spoke about the Silicon Valley. With the SVB things that are taking place currently, how do you see this affecting the startup ecosystem there in Silicon Valley? And do you think that there is much support by the companies, like the established players and corporates, to support the startups?
Oh, that's a great question. That's $1 million question right there. So yeah, it's definitely going to affect startups. So Silicon Valley Bank is actually the 20th largest bank in the U.S., and it's one of those banks where a bunch of very wealthy folks just put their money in. It's the bank that a lot of startups would go and request capital from. Let's just say that. The government is looking to step in, probably gonna bail them out. Let's see. But the bank made a lot of bad decisions. Now, when it comes to impacting the startup ecosystem, I believe in the short run it will. In the short run, it will. Another reason, apart from Silicon Valley Bank, is that there's a lot of tech layoffs. Effects to India, UK, China, and the rest of the world. So that's one thing. Another thing, as I mentioned, is a tech bubble burst that's going on. And that one's interesting because what happened was a lot of tech companies overhired. They overhired when COVID, and when in the midst of COVID and the pandemic, technically we're still in COVID, right? But in the midst of quarantine, a lot of these tech companies overhired, and a lot of people are doing remote work or whatever. you had a lot of people who were there hired, almost as a way to not. It's like Meta would hire someone so that this person wouldn't end up working for Google. That was the thinking. You know, that was one of their things. They grew the workforce so much and they overhired so their competitors didn't get employees, which is kind of interesting. And so you're seeing a lot of these massive tech layoffs because these big bets on revenue generated isn't matching the amount of people that they have on staff, so they're cutting. The only major tech company, well, interesting enough, there are a couple of major tech companies that people aren't talking about and aren't cutting, like Apple. Apple's not laying anyone off. You know, Apple hasn't laid anyone off at all. Would you consider Tesla a tech company? In a way, right? It's just these massive social media, big companies, Meta, Google, Twitter, Salesforce. They're reducing their workforce because they overhired. But Apple and some of these other companies didn't overhire. How will that impact the startup ecosystem? Personally, I have a friend who worked for Google. And so she and a bunch of her friends got together and are working on a startup. So I personally think it could be a double-edged sword. Some of these people who are laid off can feel a little entrepreneurial. I mean, they have a tech background. Several of them are from Silicon Valley or have exposure to Silicon Valley. So they could go out and develop a venture. America likes to promote ventures. So they might just go out and do a venture, do a startup. That's one avenue. Another thing is, I see that happening. So it could be a little increase in the startup ecosystem. And New York is also a hot hub for startups. Another thing is, a bunch of these people who have been laid off might not necessarily want to go back into technology. They might go into consulting. They might go to consulting or investment or something of that nature. With a consulting firm, a big consulting firm like Deloitte, Deloitte helps startups. Me personally, I work with small business. That's my role at Deloitte. I work with small business. So there are all these other avenues in which people can. I think the startup economy will continue to thrive. Silicon Valley might be hurt for a little bit, but there are other hubs like New York. People are now moving to Austin, Texas, which I believe will be an emerging startup hub. That's what I see. Silicon Valley Bank thing, it's the government will sort it out. It won't really, in the short run it will, but for Silicon Valley, in the short run it will. The tech layoffs, that's something to keep in top of mind. I know that also impacts India greatly. Twitter and Meta really impacts India. But I think the spirit of people, it'll be entrepreneurial and start up new ventures. And I guess my question back to you, that's my long-winded answer and my little tangent. But my question back to you is, where would you call the startup ecosystem of India? That's what I want to know. Because in the US, we have Silicon Valley, we have New York, Austin's a startup. Austin's about to be in Texas. I predict it's about to be a new ecosystem, especially since Tesla moved to Texas and everything. And Elon Musk announced he's building out his own city there. It's kind of crazy. So where do you think India is going to have this tech hub, startup hub type of place?
Thank you, Jonathan. So to answer your question, India has it in Bangalore for sure, because Bangalore is a very big place for startups. Apart from Bangalore is more especially technology related as well. But you will see startups in many other cities. So you will see them in Pune, you will see them in Gurgaon. That's even Delhi, New Delhi, Mumbai. All these metros and these kind of places definitely have the entire ecosystem, and in fact the government is so supportive, Jonathan, that for every state they have kept very good incentives for startups. In fact, there are tax exemption benefits for them. So the ecosystem is, and it's not just in tech. I would say that it's in healthcare related activities, it's in maybe education related activities, lot of things. So the ecosystem is pretty good and quite stable.
All right, that's very cool. So,
Excuse me, ma'am.
Bangalore, okay.
Excuse me, I have a question for Miss Urvisha. Firstly, just wanted to add a few pointers. I believe that it's not just about Bangalore being a tech hub. I think every village in India is, embarking on the journey of startups and entrepreneurship. It's been a wonderful speech so far, and I just had a small question for you, ma'am. What would be the best advice to give to an entrepreneur who does not have any experience, who's just starting an entrepreneurial journey?
Very good question, Divya. And Divya, right? And you are right in terms of saying that yes, the entrepreneurial mindset is there now, even in the remotest of areas. There's a reason behind that. One is that social activities have increased. To a very great level. So even our, wiki, which is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we are such a big for organization of women pan India, that you will see that we are mentoring so many women entrepreneurs on a one-on-one basis as well. So that impact goes on to a lot more people, and that's why you see the entire drive, passion, motivation even in women entrepreneurs in the villages. So that's the key that I wanted to talk about. And the advice that I would give young entrepreneurs, a lot of them come to us with ideas and they want to monetize the businesses. So I tell all of them, do not go as per what you see in Shark Tank, valuation games and all those kind of things. Okay, those are very I wouldn't say they are not authentic or anything like that, but every startup needs to work and go through a very long entrepreneurial journey. There is no short money, and if you want huge valuations and huge money from day one and day two, that is not the right approach for any startup, because there are challenges that will come, but you have to be very very patient and very persistent. In my own entrepreneurial journey, I used to work for long hours, put in that dedication, effort and everything, and then over a period of time you start seeing the success. So it's very important to be patient in this entrepreneurial journey.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Urvisha. I have a question for you. As you have highlighted one pointer that is under the topic why alliances are important for startups, improved competitive positions. Could you just highlight more on it?
Sure. So basically, by that, what I meant was, let's say there is a particular company who has a very good product. Maybe let's say in e-commerce business, doing some selling of certain fitness equipment manufacturing company, or selling, those gymnastic products and all. Just to give you an example. Now, if they want to, improve their distribution channel, maybe they are just doing it right now via Amazon or via Flipkart. If they have certain strategic relationships and partnerships, let's say with IPL companies, IPL sportsmen, sportswomen, or with which other teams, any other sports related teams that you talk about, let's say they partner with them, then they are in a much better competitive state compared to their competitors in the market, who might be selling their products through their own channels or through their own distributors, etc. So the reason I spoke about the partnership and alliance out here is that that particular company, in fact, we are working for that company. That's why it just struck me about that firm who we are helping raise funds. They are doing so many partnerships with Kabaddi, Pro Kabaddi and those other firms, that is helping them, get a competitive edge in the market, to boost their products and to give larger visibility to customers, penetrate deep in the regions also. So by that I meant competitive positioning.
Jamini, is it clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you, Urvisha.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay. Anjali, yes, could you please put forward your question?
Yes. Hello, sir. My question is to you. Uh, I wanted to know, in your experience, can you share some examples of successful alliances that have helped startups grow, and what are some common mistakes that we can avoid while forming alliances? Like what startups can avoid while forming alliances, and how can we avoid them? So am I audible?
Sorry, Anjali, is that question to me or Mr. Jonathan?
Mr. Jonathan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So, if I can talk about some alliances that will help some startups grow. Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Well, alliances that can make startups grow. I guess the first thing that I would think about when it comes to um, growing a startup when forming a specific alliance. Well, I gave the example of major corporate alliances, and I mean that was brought up several times actually, and those are the major examples. When it comes to smaller startup alliances, I think of it as smaller puzzle pieces trying to come together to make a bigger picture, right? So when it comes to developing, when you have a startup, looking at their market services or products, you can form an alliance. I think forming an alliance with maybe a smaller company might help. Really, yeah, it could definitely help, and you guys can merge together and become a larger entity. Or finding a partner who's willing to invest. I know Panasonic and Tesla was actually the perfect example. Panasonic didn't invest in Tesla. Tesla wouldn't become a multi-billion-dollar company, and Elon Musk wouldn't be the now second richest man in the world, right? So finding appropriate investors and and convincing people. I think the question should be not so much about find the appropriate alliance, but it's more so when you're in a startup, the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is how you generate capital or revenue, right? How can you find investment? Or how can you find money? Is that what we convince an investor to invest? And that's solely, well, there's a couple factors to that. I mean, your products or services naturally are a big part of that, but also how you approach investor, and that's a completely different conversation. For example, say that there's a startup in India that I don't want to give out any crazy ideas, but say there's a startup in India that works on AI, right? Works with something to do with social media, AI. I don't know, and that Chat GPT is a big thing now. There's a massive AI boom that's happening. So a person who's working on this AI startup, separate from ChatGPT, is doing this function, starts building it's going well, you're attracting people are using your product, and someone from your team reaches out to Microsoft. So Microsoft can do one of two things. They could either buy up your company, give you like $1 billion and buy a company, which would be the dream for some people, or they could, hopefully partner with a company, give you some funds, build it out. Or the third option, which would be the most terrifying, is that they just decide to just copy your technology and keep it for themselves. So that's also something to be conscientious of, right? So it's a very long-winded answer, long-winded question. But, when it comes to developing alliances specifically for startups, I personally think it's about identifying how your service or product can suit the needs or fill a gap of a potential partner that you're interested in. Another example, Facebook or Meta bought out Instagram, right? Instagram is a social media platform that, initially all these things were startups, right? Instagram was a social media platform. You shared photos. It was very popular, had millions of users. Facebook need to find a way to keep their user base engaged. So, naturally they bought Instagram. I'm pretty sure if Facebook could buy TikTok, they would. I'm pretty sure they would if they could. But it's all about finding the needs and finding the gaps of any partner that you're working for. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Vanisha Mahendru, you can unmute yourself simply.
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is to Urvisha ma'am. Since you are from the finance industry, I wanted to know if ChatGPT or the just relaunching of the ChatGPT 4 version could hamper or it could be a potential threat to the financial jobs. Like it could be a benefit to the employees who are working in the finance. Like I just want to know it will be beneficial or we can see some layoff in the finance industry as well.
I don't think there'll be an impact on the financial industry at all, to be honest, because there are certain things which I still believe that a machine will not be able to do and replace the financial minds of people. There are certain things where, and certain sectors where chat gpt will be playing a big role, no doubt about that. But when it comes to certain analysis, certain very specific cases, especially what maybe even phd students and all get into for in-depth research, even for finance related, I have my doubts that that can be completely replaced by GPT. So I really don't see it as a threat to financial consultants or people who are in that industry.
Okay, so the financial modeling thing, which is the very technical jobs of finance things, that could be replaced. What is your opinion on that?
No, so that's what. So number crunching and all, okay, you can maybe project certain things using chat gpt, or any, not just chat gpt, any other tech form also that you have, any coding, where the human element can be replaced to some part. So maybe the codes can help you tell you, in the next few years, this is the kind of revenues you generate, or this is the kind of expenses, or this is the kind of margins you will have probably. But how will it analyze and say and take into consideration maybe the environment? Let's say if there is a political scenario, or somebody anticipates that there is another economic reform or social impact or anything, can chat gpt take into consideration all those other extra environment things and then give the answer to you? That is a simple question that I put. So I may be wrong in this, but this is what I feel.
That's fine.
Yes, got your question. Thank you.
Here we have a question for you, Urvisha, in the chat box. If you could just have a look at it.
I would appreciate if you can elaborate on the Airbnb case study. Okay, so um, so that the Airbnb case was even I have not gone into the depth of it, but I know for the fact that when they partnered with this company which is couch surfing. Okay, I think Jonathan, you can add your viewpoint as well, since it's based out of there in US. What they did was they Airbnb, because obviously the concept is of staying in these homes and houses and rental places, be it in either cities or even in vacation places. Couch surfing also had a similar customer base. So basically, they are a popular social networking site for travelers. So anybody who would use their site, for seeing sites and seeing different places where they want to have vacation or go to, uh, would actually even get to see the Airbnb apartments that they have. So it would be a win-win situation for travelers who come on couch surfing, and for Airbnb to leverage that, because they obviously want more revenues coming from more customers using the houses and homes. Uh, Jonathan, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. As someone who's couch surfed before, yeah, it does make sense. So, no, I completely agree with you. Um, one of the valuable things with couch surfing, as you've mentioned, is the social media, the social network aspect of it. Airbnb pretty much is this. We all know Airbnb, this company where you can speak to renters and just pretty much do short-term stay in their room. What couch surfing does is that it adds this crazy network of people who literally will be like, oh hey, I'm going to Amsterdam for a couple of days. I need a place to stay, and you identify these networks of people, and you just can stay. You sometimes give them, so you give them a fee. You give them a small fee, and you just stay there. The couch surfing thing was actually, it's been around in the US. It's been around forever, as far as the 60s, back in the hippie days in America, at least, it's been around. And so that network was always there. Now you have this corporate company that's like, oh, let's capitalize on that social media network and incorporate it within our business model, create that alliance, buy them out, or buy them out, like create an alliance. And that really helps skyrocket Airbnb's user base and generate a lot of revenue for them. So much so that sometimes you find some Airbnbs are it's the same price as hotels, which is very irritating, but I digress.
Thanks. Did that answer your question? Vanilla, right? Vanilla Naidu.
I guess we have no other questions. That's it. Fine. Aditi, if you can continue.
Sure. I have one question for Ms. Urvisha. Yeah. Yes. So I just wanted to ask, like, it's true that starting plans in startups gives resistance to bigger competitions? And if yes, then how one can ensure that they can survive the resistance?
Okay, so let's say that the startup grows exponentially. An example would be like maybe Nika. When Nika started, they were a startup, right? So they kept growing, maybe through various partnerships with different kinds of brands, different kind of uh, customers, retailers, distributors, whatever. Correct. Now they reach such a position through their own strategy that they I don't think anybody could compete very to a very high level with them, because they themselves made themselves pretty strong. So if there is any startup like that who can grow to that level, at a consistent stage, through maybe getting support in terms of finance from investors, other partnership support, they themselves can become unicorns. So I don't think then they will have to really face that competition from bigger players. So one example that I gave was Nykaa, but there are so many other companies as well. Now if you take Zoho again was a startup when they started, um, and now they've become a unicorn. So again, I don't think they are competing with anybody, or anybody can take over Zoho now. They are so strong themselves, right? So my point is just that, if you have the right strategy, roadmap, and maybe doing something unique as well, there is a demand for those products. Then through collaborations and all, you can definitely reach that level where you yourself become a big company. So definitely there can be less competition, because competition will be there for anybody and everybody. But if in that space, that you are able to survive in your own niche also, I think it is a good enough thing for startups.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving ahead, we would like to thank Ms. Urvisha for her informative and knowledgeable speech, and I request her to share her mail in the chat box for any queries our attendees might have. Further, moving ahead, I would like to ask Mr. Shravan to please take over.
Yeah. Firstly, I would like to thank all our speakers for today for making this conference a warm event. We do acknowledge there are some of our fellow speakers who are absent due to certain inconveniences. We do also assure all of you that appropriate legal proceedings as well as disciplinary action in coordination with MCA shall be taken. Further, moving on, we would like to request all the attendees to kindly vote for today's best speaker by typing the name of your preferred guest speaker in the chat box. Yeah, just the names would do.
I don't want to be the best
person,
speaker.
okay? No cheating out here. One vote a person, please. Faster. We have got 35 participants. I can at least expect 32 votes. Okay. There we go. Good. A bit faster. Yeah. Okay. Now the chat box is zooming with those votes out here. Mr. Pawar, if you could just keep an eye out here. Yeah. And obviously, as usual, the polls will also be going in the conference groups for participation by those attendees who have left the meeting in May, unfortunately. Yeah. More votes, please. Has
I don't want
barely
to vote
50.
for myself, but
Barely.
wait. So does she win a prize? Can I just give the win-ins to her?
Jonathan, we can share it. No, but thank you so much. I think it was great. In fact, I wasn't expecting so many questions, to be honest. I tried my level best
You got
in
a lot
terms
of
of whatever
questions.
experience I
You
had.
really
We
did.
really appreciate your contribution. The top 3 guests of conference 1.9 shall be declared after the end of the third session tomorrow. We shall return tomorrow with the third session of conference 1.9 on role of alliances and growth of startups. Until then, stay tuned and keep dreaming. And have a great day, everyone. And do
Thank you so
subscribe
much.
to our YouTube channel, SK Associates and Group, to keep watching all the live streaming of our upcoming conferences and stay updated to the notifications of this. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.